my friends, and welcome once more in Mark's Whiskey Basement, here for another one of those whiskey ramblings. And today we will be looking at peaty whiskey. Not just any peaty whiskey. Of course, you know that Islay, the island on the west coast of Scotland, is very famous for its peaty whiskies. But we are trekking all the way across to the other side of the world to go to Japan. Because in Japan they make peaty whiskey as well. Hakushu Distillery in particular is part of the Suntory group. Now Suntory, you know, is the owners of not only Hakushu but also of Yamazaki, the very first distillery in Japan. Hakushu, however, is a younger distillery because it was founded in 1973, so it's only almost 40 years old. The Hakushu Heavily Peated is created there. Hakushu means white sandbank. Because it is in a region, in a mountainous region, at the foot of a huge mountain, at an elevation of 700 meters high, which is double the elevation of the highest distillery in Scotland, but that's another issue. It means white sandbank because two rivers, the Ojira and the Jingu, they deliver a white sand at their beaches. Anyway, it can be found at the foot of the Kaikomagatake, which is a tongue twister for a European anyway. It's a high mountain, 2,970 meters high, while Hakushu is based at the foot of that mountain at 700 meters. It is one of the largest distilleries in Japan, one of the largest because it is 850 square meters large. So it has 36 stills. That's pretty amazing, although I have to say some of those stills are silent at the moment. It is in a region that is very popular with vacationers because it is in a part that is a protected nature park, and it's only 3 hours away by bullet train from Tokyo. So you can imagine this is quite a nice spot to go to. Peace and quiet, very rural, mountainous, must be wonderful. I should visit that someday. But anyway, it's only 3 hours away from Tokyo with those fast bullet trains. The water that they use at Hakushu comes from those two rivers, of course, the Ojira and the Jingu rivers. It is considered to be one of the finest, one of the clearest, one of the best quality waters in the world, and certainly in Japan, which is why they use it for the whiskey making. But they also bottle the Hakushu water in its own right because of the high quality. Hakushu Distillery. Now, you may not have heard of the Hakushu single malt for quite a while, and that has a lot to do with the fact that the single malt was not bottled until 1984. Before that, all the production that was done at Hakushu went into blends, because unlike Scotland, in Japan, each distillery who wants to produce blends has to provide his own spirit. That means that they use different regimes of fermentation, different strains of yeast, different times of distillation, etc. The wood management is bourbon casks, sherry butts, Japanese oak. So there is this whole plethora of different recipes to create different kinds of whiskies at the distillery itself, so that they can make their own blends with what they produce themselves. Unlike in Scotland, they do not exchange stock with each other. That's a cultural thing, I suppose. Now, the range of Hakushu single malt at this moment is the 10-year-old, the 12-year-old, there's also the Hakushu 18-year-old, there's even a 25-year-old, then there is the bourbon barrel, and this one, the Hakushu Heavily Peated. Heavily Peated, which means, this is what we're going to try today, as I said, peaty whiskey. Hakushu Heavily Peated is bottled at 46% ABV. Hakushu does that with most of its whiskies, actually. And I say, ooh, look at that. It's the end of the bottle. So just in time for this whiskey rambling. I'm finishing it off. Oh, I was not aware. Oh, pity. Have to get a new one. Anyway, as you can see, it is a very light coloured and light bodied single malt from Japan. It's very light. It's like the colour of sunlight, as I describe this. The nose is peaty, but really soft. It says heavily peated. Well, maybe it is heavily peated to Japanese standards, but to European standards, Scottish standards, this is rather soft, unassuming, subdued. This is nothing like for example, Ardbeg or Lagavulin, for example. Those are much more peaty, in your face, while this Japanese heavily peated is more subdued, is more gentle, more reserved. It's a bit of a peaty gentleman, you know. It has some coastal elements, although it is matured in the mountain range. So the peaty associations that you have, it's in your mind, of course. There's a meaty side to it as well. But like I said, it's rather straightforward. It's rather unassuming and easygoing. There's a nice fruity side to it as well. Something soft and sweet, like green apple skins. And then there's also some sap of oysters, you know, when you open up an oyster, the juices. I like it. It's got a bit of brine and some ashes, but again, very soft. Nothing at all like what you would be used to if you are drinking an Islay whiskey. Yeah. The palate, however, that's more like it. Now the peat is showing itself. It's rearing its head and saying, hey, I am heavily peated. Yeah, that's more like it. A bit of pepper as well. It's much more punch on the palate. Again, the green apples, they're surely there. It's the apple skins and the vanilla is there as well. So it does have a sweet side. But the palate, it delivers. It delivers more than it promised on the nose. The finish remains on green apples and a bit of white pepper, but it's very fresh and lively. It's not too long, it's medium, it's gone before you want it to be gone, if you know what I mean. It's a medium finished whiskey. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. I kind of like the Hakushu Heavily Peated, although I have to admit, in my opinion, but that's purely my opinion of course, if you want to buy this in Europe, here in Belgium for example, this will go for around 80 euros, which in my opinion is rather expensive. I understand of course all the logistics involved in getting it to Belgium, etc, etc. But 80 euros would enable me to buy 2 bottles of Lafroig 10-year-old or even Aardbech 10-year-old, which in my opinion are more sturdy malts. But then maybe I'm comparing apples and pears. After all, this is Japanese single malt and not Islay single malt. So, there's something to say for it. But if I were merely buying this for my pure peaty enjoyment, then I would probably stick with the Islay whiskies. This one I could easily, in a blind tasting, confuse with a young Kalila or maybe even a Lafroig. It's good, alright. It's something you have to try at least. And if you can get your hand on a bottle, why not? But remember, a bit expensive. Well, the Japanese sure knew how to make a good single malt. Hakushu Heavily Peated. Well worth a try, although a bit expensive. But hey, that's, well, goes with the territory. That's it for this Whiskey Rambling. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a Japanese dram like I do. Until we meet again for another Whiskey Rambling, may the malt be with you. Kanpai!